Hello and welcome to my HLX. My research question is, how do natural resources, military and global politics shape the US and Saudi alliance? What's a strategic alliance? In global politics, it is basically a partnership between two or more states to pursue a set of agreed upon objectives while remaining independent and sovereign. For example, you have the US-Israel alliance, China-Pakistan alliance, etc. The global political challenge that I'll be addressing is security. The theories used will be realism, and key concepts will be interdependence, human rights, power, sovereignty, and that's it. Let's look at the historical background of the US-Saudi alliance. The US-Saudi alliance has existed since before 1938 for strategic purposes when oil was first discovered on Saudi soil. In 1945, the two states made a deal of alliance wherein Saudi Arabia would sell its oil to the US, and in turn, the US would supply the state with arms and ammunition to maintain the stability in the Middle East region and for purposes like state security and counterterrorism. I would like to divert your attention to two specific events in this alliance that have emerged, that have changed it in certain ways. The first of them is the oil embargo of 1973, when a war broke out between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and when the US supported Israel by providing it with weapons, Saudi Arabia and some other Arab states reacted by cutting off their oil supply to the US. This resulted in a drastic hike in oil prices for the US and caused tensions between the US and Saudi Arabia. Another important event was the rise of anti-US leader Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran, who was also against Saudi Arabia for the religious Shia-Sunni divide. This gradually reforged strong bonds between US and Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia needed to protect itself from Iran. It needed to defend itself from Iran and its state-sponsored terrorism majorly. And the US was always an oil-hungry country due to increasing development. So this kind of forged their bond further. Now, through a realist perspective, I would say that both states ended up greatly serving their own national interests with this alliance. Talking about how the US gained would be Saudi Arabia is the US's largest foreign military sales customer with more than $100 billion in active foreign military sales cases. Saudi Arabia is one of the United States' largest trading partners in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is its third leading source of imported oil. And Saudi ministers, including those of finance and petroleum, have degrees from the United States' universities. On the other hand, what Saudi Arabia got out of this alliance would be that the alliance ultimately resulted in Saudi Arabia getting the Saudi Aramco, which is the world's largest oil producer company. Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund has stakes in major United States' tech firms, including Uber and Tesla. It receives advanced ammunitions and arms to defend itself from Iran and to participate in the Yemen war. The US supports Saudi government's ministries of defense, its National Guard, its Interior Ministry. The US also supports Saudi government. It also helps in providing technical support in areas such as education, trade, economic development, etc. Now that we've talked about how the alliance helped the national interests of the different countries, also want to talk about the strains in the alliance, because however as convenient as it has seemed, the alliance has almost always been extremely rocky. One of the major reasons would be human rights violations and freedom issues in Saudi Arabia, because this is a major ideological difference between the United States and Saudi Arabia, and which has been a major obstacle for this alliance. Because, well, the US on many occasions has criticized the violation of women's rights and religious freedoms in Saudi Arabia. When the Obama administration in particular supported the right of Saudi citizens to freedom of assembly and freedom of expression, Saudi Arabia considered it as an attack on its sovereignty. The second thing I want to talk about is the nuclear Iran deal, which is because As Iran is a stark opponent of Saudi Arabia, Obama's any amount of readiness for cooperation with Iran for the nuclear deal was heavily criticized by the Saudi Arabia. This is why secret negotiations were held in Oman to work out the Joint Comprehensive Action Plan of 2015. This was also a major source of tension because of the between the two countries in their alliance. This also led, interestingly, to cutting of all diplomatic links between Iran and Saudi Arabia. The third thing that I want to talk about is the Palestinian question. The Israel-Palestinian conflict has always been a source of contention among the two states. When Saudi Arabia proposed an Arab Peace Initiative in an attempt to normalize Arab and Israel relations and finding a just solution for the Palestinians, Bush and Obama administrations adopted the elements of these initiatives, but Trump administration outrightly supported Israel. This was heavily criticized by Saudi Arabia. In 2018, when the US decided to recognize Jerusalem as the Israeli capital, the Saudi royal court completely denounced it. The Trump administration still hoped that Saudi Arabia will agree with them and will help them to basically help in supporting more peace-related initiatives in the region. The murder of Jamal Khashoggi is also one of the major reasons of why the US-Saudi relationship is strained these days, recently, because the brutal murder of the Saudi journalist working in the United States of America's The Washington Post in 2018 by Saudi assassins led to public unrest and prosecution in court, where 5 of the murderers were announced a death sentence. This seemed to waver, but not majorly affect the alliance during the Trump administration. But under the Biden administration, that could change because the US's decision to revisit the case implies the likely blame of murder on the on the Saudi crown prince, which may lead to larger consequences for the alliance as well as the Saudi reputation in the global arena. In also a few words, I want to look at the public opinion of the whole alliance. In the US, the common public has been really skeptical about the integrity of the alliance after the 9/11 attacks, which also puts an immense strain over the alliance. Yeah. As the Yemen war and human rights violations issues developed further, the public acceptance deteriorated. Moreover, Khashoggi's death worsened the situation really badly. Common citizens, at least of the US, do not look upon the alliance favorably. The last thing that I would do would be glancing over the developments and stances of each leader involved in the alliance. Starting with Obama, the US arms sales in the kingdom reached their peak during the Obama administration, along with the military relations and defensive cooperation. The volume of Saudi exports to the US in 2016 reached about $17 billion, and the volume of US exports to Saudi Arabia reached about $18 billion. With regard to education, Saudi students and universities contributed to $1.7 billion to the US economy in 2014. When Trump came into power, when Mohammed bin Salman was given the throne, we have seen that with Trump's aggressive positions towards Iran in 2017, Trump primarily showed a pro-Saudi stance. Furthermore, as US backed Saudi involvement in Yemen war then, to check the Iranian influence in the region, Trump also described Saudi Arabia as the best partner for counterterrorism. The oil import of the oil import to the US from the Saudi Arabia increased by 2 million barrels per day, and Trump decided to respect the Saudi sovereignty when it came to the human rights violations that they did. It also showed support to the Saudi vision of 2030 by Mohammed bin Salman for the development of Saudi Arabia, and praised the Saudi decision of increasing the rights of women. I want to talk about a slight change in the alliance formula, which could be seen in the recent years. Because comparatively from the past, the US is trying to reduce Saudi oil dependence because like after the discovery and production of shale oil in the US. However, the US still relies on the kingdom to regulate the global market prices for oil. US has tried to shift its strategic interest from the Middle East to Asia a lot. In Because of this, Saudi Arabia is also working on strengthening its alliances with Russia and China to avoid sole dependence on the US. However, these baby steps have not yet been effective enough to cause major changes in the alliance. Looking at the future with Biden, we could say that being an advocate of human rights, it could be hoped that Biden-Harris's administration might work on ending the war in Yemen by putting diplomatic pressure on the Saudis to back out, as the US provides major logistical and military assistance. This could be a positive step towards ending the war, we could hope. There may be an insurance that the weapons used, like the weapons given to Saudi Arabia, are used mostly for defense rather than offense. The Biden administration cannot be expected to bring pivotal changes to the alliance, but if the Iran nuclear deal is considered, the US will have to consult the kingdom to sort out the deal. Biden may also put an end to the near unconditionality of the alliance and make sure that the alliance serves both the parties equally. Finally, to conclude, from the realist's perspective, the US-Saudi alliance has been an attempt to serve national interests of both the states that reside in oil reserves and military power. In my opinion, for ideological and structural reasons, conflicts have continued to taint this alliance with like various incidents like the 9/11 attacks, the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, etc. They will continue to do so in the future, but in the end, the US-Saudi relations, I think, have more chance of remaining unwavered because of the simple realist reasons. That is, both states need each other to maintain stability in the Middle East, to remain as great powers, and they need to ally for counterterrorism, common enemies like Iran, and security. The future of any alliance, in my opinion, is meant to be uncertain, but the probability of the alliance, like this alliance, remaining unaltered seems very high to me. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my HLX. Thank you.